What's up guys, this is ZonalFear bringing you some Crysis 3 open beta gameplay. This gameplay is from the PC version of the game, and I've had a few games of it so far, and it's quite enjoyable. It's very much like Crysis 2. For those of you guys that played Crysis 2's multiplayer mode, you'll feel very at home with Crysis 3's multiplayer mode. The game mode that I'm playing today is called Crash Site, and this is on the museum multiplayer map. The objective of the game is to secure crash pods, and the longer you hold them, the more points you build up. The first team to reach 200 points wins the game, so you've basically got to capture and hold these crash pods. There's also another game mode as well, which I've tried a little bit of, called Hunter, and that's a lot of fun actually. I've had a couple of games of that and it is quite fun. It's also very, very difficult as well. But what happens in that game mode is once you are eliminated from the survivors team, you then go on to the hunters team, and you basically have to hunt down the survivors, the team that you were on just a second ago. So if you get eliminated on hunter mode, you become a hunter and have to hunt down the remaining survivors. Graphically speaking, Crysis 3 looks absolutely fantastic. I'm playing this on a GeForce GTX 550 Ti at 1680 by 1050, and it's quite a demanding game. There have been quite a few occasions while I've been playing the multiplayer where my frame rate has dropped into the sort of mid 20s, so it's quite a demanding game. If you're playing on anything less than a GeForce GTX 550 Ti, I can't imagine this game is going to be a very enjoyable experience for you, because there were more than enough occasions where I ended up dying because my frame rate all of a sudden just took a nosedive. The processor that I'm using for this game is my good old AMD Phenom X6 1055T at stock clocks, and it performs well enough in this game. Crysis 3 appears to be more of a GPU heavy game rather than something which heavily relies on the CPU. So as long as you have a really good graphics card and a decent quad-core processor, you're going to be doing just fine with this game. The multiplayer is very much like Crysis 2, as I mentioned previously. A lot of people have mixed opinions about Crysis 2. Personally, I really enjoyed the single player of Crysis 2. The multiplayer wasn't quite my cup of tea. One of the biggest problems I had with it was the absolutely insane bullet damage, where a single toe shot would floor you. That seems to have been adjusted slightly in Crysis 3, and you can now take a few more rounds than you could in Crysis 2. So it's not as frustrating, for me at least, to play the multiplayer. The damage model has been toned down a tiny bit to change it more from realism to fun. A lot of people get that mixed up in games. Often you hear, oh, but being shot by this is completely realistic. You would die in one hit. And it kind of takes away from the actual meaning of games, which is fun. A lot of the time, really high bullet damage ruins multiplayer games, because it's good to have some sort of inclination that you're actually being attacked from some sort of direction before you go down. And some multiplayer games make the mistake of implementing such high bullet damage that you really can't do anything, and that makes for a really frustrating experience. Crysis 3 thankfully addresses some of the issues that I had with Crysis 2's multiplayer, in particular the insane bullet damage. So this looks like it's going to be a more enjoyable multiplayer game mode to play. My favourite game mode at the moment is Crash Site. I think that comes more from the fact that it kind of feels very conquesty for those of you guys that have played Battlefield, where you capture and hold crash pods. So it kind of has a sort of conquest feel to it. So if you've played Battlefield before, you may enjoy the Crash Site game mode. Before you download the Crysis 3 multiplayer open beta, it's best to download Nvidia's latest drivers, which are 313.95, as it does increase performance from the stable 310.90 drivers. I noticed around about a 20% increase in frame rate from the 310.90 to the 313.95 drivers. So if you're struggling for frames, check your driver version and update to the latest drivers which Nvidia put out yesterday, as it does increase performance. The game, I have Crysis 3 set to a mixture of low to medium settings. As it's a beta, I would expect some issues. in the game. I don't run at a amazingly demanding resolution, and I'm noticing that there are quite a few times during the game where GPU usage does seem to drop for no apparent reason. So I think that Crytek stroke Nvidia may still have some optimizing to do for the game, as there are more than a few occasions where my frame rate took a dive and I noticed that my GPU usage was taking a dive as well. So I still feel that there are more optimizations that can be made for the game, and hopefully those optimizations will take me from the sort of low stroke medium settings that I currently have up to more medium high settings. Crysis 2 is very demanding in the same way Crysis 3 is, but on my GeForce GTX 550 I could still play at very high on 1680 by 1050 resolution and still maintain a good 60 frames per second. I don't know what Crytek have done in Crysis 3 to make it so GPU heavy. It looks nicer, that is for sure, but there is some funkiness going on at the moment with the performance of the game, which is something that I'm saying a lot of recently. PlanetSide 2 has performance issues as well, and I'd like to hope that they are also going to be sorted. There's a big patch out for PlanetSide 2, I believe it is tomorrow, just kind of while I'm on the subject a little bit. But one of the things I seem to be saying a lot more of recently is performance issues in games. I do hope that Nvidia stroke Crytek can sort out the GPU optimization on the games, as I don't have the most powerful graphics card in the world, but it would be nice to get a bit better performance, as really I'm not seeing a fantastically running game at the moment, and it's hardly some sort of weak graphics card from the early 2000s. I went something like 11 for 6 in this game. One of the problems that I have with the multiplayer, which is more me, is the kind of slowness at which you seem to move. I know that you can increase that by sort of adjusting your sensitivity and things like that, but generally you seem to be able to only turn around so quick, and that kind of gets me killed an awful lot. I like the ability to be able to do a 180 sort of just like that, when I feel like. The aiming is good. When you're firing at anything more than close quarters though, and you're aiming down the sights, it becomes a bit hit and miss when you're actually going to if you're going to kill your target. So controlled aiming is required. Another one of the things that people are running around with an awful lot of at the moment in multiplayer is shotguns. Shotguns and melee like this guy. I'm dying quite a lot because of a shotgun and a melee and a shotgun and a melee combination, which is quite annoying. But usually, well, that kind of takes advantage of the fact that medium range shooting is so-so unless you do it in controlled bursts. These are my initial impressions on the Crysis 3 multiplayer open beta. Hopefully I'll have some more coming for you for Crysis 3. Stay tuned guys, do let me know what you think of the game in the comments if you've already played it. Until next time, take care.